offer them benefits that may not be immediately apparent to the eye, and what can you do to really drive future utility beyond today. So just a couple quick data points on that consumer trend. We see private label up, we see coupons up, we see this phenomenon called swishing parties where people are getting together to exchange clothing. Repairs and shoes are up. Americans are obviously returning to the home to spend. Interestingly enough, data point, 68% of Americans now carry a library card, which is the highest ever in our nation, which I thought was a really neat thing. In one respect, it's focused on that short term, and that's the long term. It's about self-improvement. We see in the data spices being used in lieu of expensive foods, value recipes growing, and Craigslist growing in terms of increase in traffic. And I'll come on in a second to talk about the rise of bartering. So just in terms of a few examples of brands I think that are doing some interesting things in terms of brands that last, one was McDonald's. And I think McDonald's, along with Walmart, were the only two companies last year to grow on the Dow Jones. And they've done some really interesting things about reframing their new products in the concept of how we live our lives today. And I thought this was an interesting example from their unsnobbycoffee.com, taking a shot at a certain retailer in Seattle. But unsnobby.com has a really innovative website that allows you to create a whole bunch of different letters, so you can send a little letter off to somebody who may be spending $4 for a latte, and you can send that off on your way. So I thought was kind of a nice little thought. A couple other quick examples. I think Ziploc's doing a wonderful thing. As consumers are trying to stretch their budgets, what Ziploc has done is they've stepped in to offer the consumer help with their website and Shelf Life 101. You'll see a theme as I go through this. A lot of this is digital. I mean, clearly there's a lot of advertising out there as well, but your ability to connect to your community using your digital is really powerful. So this just shows you different methods of what lasts long and how long it lasts, and then they've got a whole range of helpful hints and ideas to make your products last on their website, which I thought was quite nice. A couple of other things around the brand that last. Who remembers the Sears layaway program? Who got a bike on the Sears layaway program? Nobody? I did. Sears layaway came back, and it was very successful for Sears this year. With that insight that consumers are deferring purchases, so how do you help a consumer, pay for the product that they want to get? Prego has taken on the trend toward people not eating out as much as we heard earlier, and they've created this very helpful website around My Italian Table, which offers wine and food suggestions to allow you to stay at home and to take advantage of that sort of nesting phenomenon. And I thought another really great example was just, resurrecting an expected benefit. How about meals at mealtime on Continental Airlines? So again, thinking about your consumer, thinking about ways you can create added value to give them the principle that you're going to be there and last for them in the future. Lastly, I'll just show you quickly Gillette Fusion, which they reframed their value in terms of razor blades being offered at $1 a week. So a different way to talk about your price with your consumer. The second of the four post-crisis consumerism rules is this cultural value toward ethics and fair play. We clearly have learned that the economy is not self-stabilizing, that we need intervention and we need oversight. And what we see in the consumer strategy that's manifesting that is this idea toward empathy and respect. It's back to what I talked about earlier with trust. Empathy and respect is critical in order to engender a relationship with the consumer. And what they're saying is they want to know that you get me. They want to know that you get me and you get my challenges, and that you're not just going to give me platitudes and you're going to navigate my way forward. So the management principle we took away from that was this idea of value and values. Clearly you need to offer your consumer value, but you are not even going to get to the sale unless you come to a place with integrity. And I think, as we've watched the run-up of CSR and the other things that we try to do to instill values in our company, many of these things have been bolted on. And what we see in our data, and a lot of what I wrote about in my book, is that the consumer sees the company behind the brand. They see the culture. They see the ethics, the code, and the conduct. And you can use all of their different resources in order to understand what that company is all about. So this focus on, closing the deal by first having a brand with integrity is critical. A couple of quick things on this empathy and respect. The cultural shift toward greed. This is a website that's growing in popularity, which is how to date a banker anonymously. But just seriously, the whole focus on reshifting of our sort of values in terms of money and capital creation into other things. It's back to Maslow. I have a lot here, but I'll keep going. Let's talk then about the management principle, this idea of value and values. Seeing some interesting things. We're seeing Starbucks focus back on their loyal customer. They had insight in their data that found that 70% of their heavy users, super heavy users, were apt to refer the brand. So they created their loyalty program, which is Starbucks Gold. I thought it was quite interesting to note what American Express has done recently, where they focused on actually, back to our discussion this morning about risk, American Express is paying customers $300 to leave the franchise, right? Focus on there. And then Alpo, I thought, good old-fashioned Alpo has come back to the basics to remind people that even your dog has to move down Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So their website is about, enough with doggy sweaters and doggy treadmills, enough with the doggy daycares and the $50 chew toys. At Alpo, we believe it's time to let dogs be dogs again. If you agree, come on inside, but just check your sequin dog collar at the door. So again, this focus again on authenticity and what's real. I thought it was interesting to see, not only what Dial is doing with their economical packaging, what IKEA is doing. They're getting away from selling things to selling the home. And then most notably what Tropicana did. I think you might be aware, we were having this discussion this morning, Russ and I, about what's happened with Tropicana and their focus on their packaging. And this was just my daughter's reaction to the new Tropicana packaging at Whole Foods last week. But what I thought was interesting about this debate, and maybe this is a discussion we could have later, is, some people have said, well, that was capitulation to a minority, but we just had this discussion that talked about the power of social media and the rise of the democratization of influence. So who's to say whose opinion is right or wrong? But I think what Tropicana realized is that they had sort of a challenge with their core user. The third of the four values is this idea of liquid life. We are seeing a shift in American values from having things as a definition of status to having liquidity. Okay, so the focus is about saving more and spending less. And the associated sort of consumer strategy that we see in this is this whole idea of déclassé consumption. And what this means is that there's an appearance to actually being prudent. And if you spend money and you show that you're spending money, you feel insensitive to what's happening. And in fact, you're actually sort of anti-fashion. And the principle that I believe goes along with that is this understanding of this sort of building pragmatism in your consumer and this idea that dollars and cents really matter. So it's not just about the value that you offer, but it's also the fact that how you say it and how you communicate it. Quick couple of examples of déclassé consumption. We had the New York Fashion Show 2 weeks ago, and McDonald's did a Happy Meal for models for the Ducky Brown show, which I thought was kind of interesting. We also have seen, the rise of things like the Gilt Group, H&M with Karl Lagerfeld focusing on affordable fashion, recessionistas replacing sort of the Sex and the City girl. But I think what we're seeing in all of this is this move from this sort of Gilded Age to a Gilt Age, where it just doesn't look fashionable to be that way. And in fact, in some stores on Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, they'll give you a brown paper bag to carry out your Hermes products. But seriously, with dollars and cents, there's some very interesting things that I think some marketers are doing. And again, these go outside of platitudes and advertising. And it got me to wonder, with the advent of all the tools we have now, 10 years ago, we might have just put some ads on to say feel better, and we would have couponed. But what we're seeing now is some very innovative use of pricing, of distribution, and others. For instance, Frito-Lay had really great consumer insight, and they found out that their consumer had more money at the beginning of the month than at the end of the month. So what they did is they created larger packs at the beginning of the month, traded them out with their retail partners, went into smaller packs at the end of the month, and promoted them along the way. So again, a really innovative use of pricing and of distribution. Kraft has done a phenomenal job with iFood Assistant. This is a really helpful iPhone app. If anybody has this, I don't know if you have it. Really great thing. It's risen to become one of the top 100 apps on iPhone, and it's the top 2 apps in terms of the lifestyle category. Basically provides busy moms and busy shoppers with recipes on the go. And then you see things from Hyundai, the Hyundai Assurance Program. It's back to this point about empathy and respect. Hyundai grew 14% in a down market. Federal Express, really great program with Free Resume Day.